Alright, let's talk about music. Real, proper music. The kind that makes you feel something. In the 1960s, two bands were absolutely massive. They were like the two biggest football teams in the world, playing at the same time. On one side, you had the Beatles, four lads from Liverpool. They had the sharp suits and the cheeky grins. They completely changed the game. On the other side, you had the Beach Boys. These were the cool guys from California. They sang about surfing, cars, and endless summers. It was a proper showdown, a friendly one, but a showdown nonetheless. Now these bands weren't just making catchy tunes, they were the soundtrack to a generation. Think about it, the world was changing fast in the 60s. People were looking for something new, something exciting. The Beatles and the Beach Boys gave them just that. They weren't just singers, they were storytellers. They captured what it felt like to be young back then. From the rainy streets of Liverpool to the sunny beaches of Hawthorne, California, their music transported you. They were more than bands, they were a cultural phenomenon, truly. The amazing thing is, they were fans of each other. It was a friendly rivalry. Brian Wilson, the genius behind the Beach Boys, would hear a new Beatles album and think, right, I have to top that. Then Paul McCartney and John Lennon would hear what Brian did and get inspired to push their own music even further. It was this incredible creative tennis match across the Atlantic Ocean. This competition made both bands better. It pushed them to experiment and create some of the most iconic albums in history. We all won because of it. So, why are we still talking about them today, on August 9th, 2025? It's simple, really. Their music is timeless. It doesn't matter if you were there in the 60s or if you're just discovering them now. Their songs about love, fun, and even feeling a bit lost still connect with people. They set the standard for what a band could be. They showed the world that pop music could be art. And that, my friends, is why this debate is still so much fun. Who was better? Let's get into it. Let's look at their sound. It's where you see the biggest difference, especially at the start. The Beach Boys were pure sunshine. Their music was all about those incredible vocal harmonies. It was complex stuff, but it sounded so easy and breezy. You'd hear songs like Surfin' USA, and you could almost feel the sand between your toes. They created the California sound. It was optimistic, it was fun, and it was perfect for driving with the windows down. Their early music was a celebration of American youth culture, a perfect escape. The Beatles, on the other hand, started with a different energy. They came from the world of rock and roll. Think Chuck Berry and Little Richard, but with a British twist. Their early songs like She Loves You were raw and exciting. They had this incredible energy on stage that made crowds go absolutely wild. It was less about painting a picture of a perfect life and more about capturing the feeling of being young and in love. Their sound was a bit grittier, a bit more direct, and it took the world by storm. It was infectious. But here's where it gets interesting. They started to influence each other. The Beatles released an album called Rubber Soul. It was a huge step forward for them. The music was more thoughtful, more acoustic. Brian Wilson heard it and was completely blown away. He decided he had to make an album that was just as artistic. The result was Pet Sounds. This album was a masterpiece. It had lush arrangements, unusual instruments, and deeply personal lyrics. It wasn't just about surfing anymore. It was about the complexities of growing up. And what did the Beatles do after hearing Pet Sounds? They went back into the studio and made Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Paul McCartney has said many times that Pet Sounds was the biggest influence on that album. Suddenly, both bands were in a race to see who could be the most creative. They were using the studio as an instrument, adding strange sound effects, orchestras, and tape loops. They both moved from simple pop songs to creating these incredible, complex works of art. It was a brilliant, brilliant time for music. When you talk about these bands, you have to talk about the songwriters. They were the engines. For the Beatles, you had the legendary partnership of John Lennon and Paul McCartney. They were like two sides of the same coin. Paul was a master of melody. He could write these beautiful, catchy tunes that you just couldn't get out of your head. Think of Yesterday or Hey Jude. They are perfectly crafted songs. He was the optimistic, romantic one, and his music often reflected that beautifully. John Lennon was the other half of that genius duo. He was the poet, the rebel. His lyrics were often more abstract and deeply personal. He wasn't afraid to show his vulnerability or his anger. Songs like Strawberry Fields Forever or In My Life are just stunning pieces of writing. They take you to another place entirely. Together, Lennon and McCartney were unstoppable. They complemented each other perfectly, pushing each other to write better and better songs that defined a generation and continue to inspire. Over in California, the main man for the Beach Boys was Brian Wilson. Now, Brian was a different kind of genius. He was the composer, the producer, and the arranger. He heard entire symphonies in his head. He would write these incredibly complex vocal harmonies and musical arrangements. He was the architect of their sound. His work on songs like Good Vibrations is just mind-blowing. He spent months in the studio perfecting that one song, using instruments people had never put in a pop song before. It was pure ambition. Brian's songs were also incredibly emotional. As he got older, his lyrics became more and more introspective. He wrote about feeling insecure and lonely, which was a huge contrast to their early fun in the sun image. A song like God Only Knows is one of the most beautiful love songs ever written. It's so honest and vulnerable. Paul McCartney himself has called it the greatest song ever written. So you had Lennon and McCartney on one side, and the singular genius of Brian Wilson on the other. What a time to be alive. So why do we still love them? It's not just nostalgia, it's because their music is just that good. It's brilliantly written, beautifully performed, and full of genuine emotion. A great song is a great song, whether it was released in 1966 or last week. When you listen to Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles, it can still make a bad day feel a little bit better. It's pure magic. That's the power of their music. It connects with us on a human level, which is something that never goes out of style. Their influence is everywhere. You can't listen to the radio today without hearing echoes of the Beatles and the Beach Boys. So many artists have been inspired by them, from rock bands to pop stars. Everyone has learned something from their work. They showed everyone that a pop group could write their own songs. They showed that you could experiment with sound in the studio. They basically wrote the rulebook for modern pop music. They were true pioneers, charting a course that countless musicians have followed since. Think about the fun facts too. Did you know the Beach Boys' Good Vibrations was one of the most expensive singles ever made at the time? Or that the Beatles were the first band to play a major stadium concert at Shea Stadium in New York? These weren't just bands, they were trailblazers. They broke records, they changed fashion, and they had a massive impact on the culture of the 60s. They were more than just music, they were a movement, and their stories are just as fascinating as their songs. In the end, choosing between them is impossible. It's like choosing between pizza and ice cream. You don't have to. You can love both. The Beatles gave us rock and roll revolution and psychedelic exploration. The Beach Boys gave us heavenly harmonies and teenage symphonies. They were two brilliant, shining lights in a decade of incredible change. Their music is a gift that keeps on giving, a perfect soundtrack for yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And that, right there, is why they will be loved forever. Absolutely incredible.